Howdy gang, Trailblazer Tim here again. Today it's a blustery one here in Central Florida. There's little rain squalls that keep coming off the ocean from the east. Decided to come out here in the woods to show you a cool little setup called the Bivy Bag Tarp Shelter. Now, like most shelters, when you set them up, especially open-end tarp shelters, you always want to try to set up your shelter facing away from the weather. Like today, we have our squalls coming off the ocean from the east, which means I am looking for somewhere where I can set up my shelter facing west. Let's look. Now, in this demonstration of the Bivy Bag Tarp Shelter, we need one solid tree to work with for a guideline, such as this one behind me, which is directly west from where the weather is coming from. Looks like a good spot. Let's go ahead and get set up. So it actually looks like we lucked out, because this area where we want to set up our Bivy Bag Tarp Shelter, it has a nice little clearing in here, and it looks like it's going to set down nicely. In today's demonstration, I will be using, once again, my 10-foot Superfly Chill Grill rain fly for our shelter. Let's go ahead and get it open and lay it out. Now, if you look, you can see my tarp is laying down in the diamond shape on the ground, so the point is facing the tree in which I'm going to tie off to. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take our paracord, which is going to be our tie-off line. I have tied a simple bowline knot in there, and I'm going to clip a carabiner onto that, and we're going to take and we're going to clip this onto the front part of our shelter. Because we're working at kind of a close proximity from where the guideline and the tree are, we're going to tie that guideline off at about 3 feet. All right, so we got our guideline that is carabiner to the front of our tarp. I'm going to do a simple tie off. This is not going to be permanent. This is just so we can keep our tarp in one place while we get the rest of it set up. Simple little temporary knot, which will be coming back off there once we get this thing set up and ready to pull up. Something like that. At this point, we're going to go to the very opposite side of our tarp that we have laying on the ground, back in there, and set a stake in place through the loop. Now with the front end with the guideline temporarily tied off to the tree and the very back end with a single stake, we're going to come up here where the front point is and go over to the next loop on each one of the sides and put a stake down there. All right, with our guideline up and our two front edges pegged down as well as the back, this is what we're looking at. Now we're going to take the two loose ends and we're going to wrap them up underneath there. Okay, so at this point in the game, we're going to go back down underneath there where we pulled our two sides in, and we're going to stake them down together. And then we'll see how we look. Have a go of that. The Bivy Bag Tarp Shelter. Let's go inside and see what we got. Sweet. The only downfall about this particular shelter is it's like a bivvy. There's not a lot of room. So, but I do have a floor, as you can see here. So if I was wanting to sleep out overnight, I'm not laying directly down on top of the ground. And it provides great shelter, especially in the wind and in the rain. This thing is 100% waterproof unless the wind starts coming in the other direction and it's rain-driven wind. The Bivy Bag Tarp Shelter. couple little tips when it comes to making this type of tarp shelter. If I had more of an area where I could lay out the tarp and stuff and be a little further away from the tree, I could probably raise this up a little bit higher and get a little bit more room underneath there. On top of that, this is pretty tight, but in all essence, what you would want to do at this point when you're finishing off the tarp shelter is create a trucker's hitch. That way you could tighten this thing down to maximum tightness. Hey, that's all the time we got for this one. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching the video. The Bivy bag tarp shelter, very low profile and to the ground. It cuts against that rain and that wind and that cold and all that other good stuff. Nice little floor area up underneath there. Not a lot of room. This is a one-man operation unless you want to get real cozy with a second person. But it has a nice valance area in the front where you can store kind of your gear and all that stuff. And always make sure, like I said in the beginning of the video, to set your tarp up facing away from the oncoming weather. That way it has a chance to just whip on over top of you and you stay nice and dry. Thanks so much for hanging out. Until next time, I'll see you all in the next adventure. Take care.